Hello, everybody. Nice to see you. I'm very excited to be with you today to talk about a business case, an amazing business case. I'm Laurent Vigouroux, the VP Brand Ambassador from B2Wise. B2Wise, we are a company that is focused on giving value to our customers by giving them the new engine DDMRP. And we provide service, we provide software, and we provide training so people can be awesome in the supply chain. I'm here with Eric Liabo from Legrand. Eric, can you present yourself, please?
Thanks, Laurent, for the introduction. My name is Eric Liabo, and I'm a supply chain manager at Legrand, a French company. As I was saying, as you can hear, I'm also French, even if I lived in UK and Switzerland, and I'm now located in the south of France in the sunny Antibes.
Excellent. So you are in charge of this crazy project, DDMRP project. And I've heard the news this morning of CNN saying, hey, Eric is now our new DDMRP trainer. Hey, what is this news? Come on.
I became a corporate trainer for demand-driven planner training program. The idea was to become a corporate planner to support and energize the teams in our deployment to come on demand-driven. And it was also a good way for me to keep up with the theory, so I could share with everyone. And I love training anyway, so it was good.
That's amazing. So you are endorsed by the Demand Driven Institute, which is the official institute for the training. So let's get started. Can you present who is Legrand? Because I don't know if everybody in the crowd knows about Legrand.
So Legrand is a global leader in electrical equipment. It's a French company, obviously, and you can see the numbers on the screen. The very important piece of information here is that we have more than 300,000 SKUs worldwide. So you can see it's a fair share of complexity. So we were very happy to look for options and ideas to manage them better.
Okay, so what is the organization of Legrand in terms of business units?
So we are organized in 4 business units. The 2 main ones, the user interfaces and electrical infrastructures. The user interfaces, it's all the plugs from low range to high end you can find in hotels. And electrical infrastructures, this is my business unit, and it's all the power breaker. Various products, so you can find them in all the electrical equipment in your house or building. But we're also growing very fast on IoT and connected products, especially on digital infrastructure and building systems products. So it's a big growth contributor these days.
And what is the global footprint of Legrand, this big company at least?
Yeah, we are a French company, one of the top 40 listed in the Paris Stock Exchange. But we have a worldwide presence. We are big, especially in the US, in Europe, and in India. And we operate around 100 production units and factories, and 100 distribution centers globally. So a lot of operations, complex flows, a lot of exchanges between regions. So we have a fair amount of work in terms of supply network and supply chain.
That's a huge global network.
Yeah.
And in this huge global network, you succeeded in implementing a new approach. How was it possible? How did you succeed in bringing on board this new, what are the roots of this DDMRP project?
So as often, innovation came from outside. Legrand hired a colleague who was previously exposed to demand-driven in his old company. So when he joined Legrand, he started to talk about demand-driven to everyone. And he started to plant all the seeds for for us to explore demand-driven concept. And he told us it was an amazing breakthrough change, and he also teased us saying that it all started with playing with Legos in his old company. So we were intrigued and we wanted to know more. And that's how we heard about DD Bricks and B2Wise.
Wait, playing Legos during your working hours? Come on.
Yeah, one full afternoon playing Legos with you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of working, and don't talk it to the children. So DD Bricks, that's the start.
Yeah.
What is DD Bricks? Come on.
So it's a first exposition to demand-driven that you with B2Wise is proposing. We invited to this session a business unit general manager, supply chain managers, procurement directors, so very senior actors in our corporation. And it was, the idea was to tell them, look, this is what demand driven. Should we want to explore and know more about it after this session? So it was a good one for that.
I want to come back on one point. How did you succeed in bringing on board during one day the head of a business unit? This is a busy guy. He has got a lot to do.
So he asked us about supply chain improvement and how to improve service level. So we told him, look, we made a deal, and it's very successful to do that. We made a deal. Give us half a day of your time. We bring you to playing DD Bricks, and if you're not happy, we won't pay for the session. And this is what you told us. But if you are, you start the project.
No, we said that we didn't talk about that, Eric, during the webinar.
Don't worry about it. You can see a lot of smiles on the pictures after the session we had. So we paid at the end, and
yes,
very soon
my
we
accountant
started.
is happy.
Yeah. So very soon we had everything we needed to launch a pilot and to make sure the company was aligned with it, and gave us some money also for that.
So that was the start of this project, the launch of this project. So how did you do this start?
Well, we, based on all the learnings and the good things we had from DD Bricks, we were able to, after October 19, to start the project and to validate that we were going to launch a proof of concept. So we assembled project teams, selected the workshops, the factories that were going to be test. We secured the budget, very important as well, based on and thanks to DD Bricks and everything you brought. And that's how we started to launch the project. After we validated the project internally, we were able to select C12 and B2Wise, among others, to support us in this demand-driven journey. C12 to manage the change and our processes, and B2Wise for technology and training purposes. Yeah.
Excellent. You talk about DDMRPs from the beginning of this webinar, but can you give us some clues about what is this methodology, this new methodology?
How long do we have, Laurent? Because I could speak about it all day now. You converted me.
3 days actually.
Yeah. Demand-driven MRP is an innovative supply chain and management methodology based on buffers and flow. Okay, and it puts the flow at the center of our decisions. It reduces our dependence on forecast, which is something we all want, because we all know forecast is wrong. It's not that forecast is not used anymore, it's just used differently. And we'll see that in a moment to size our supply network. And by reducing this dependency on forecast, it reduces the level of nervosity that we have in our supply networks. Basically, it reduces dramatically your bullwhip effect. I think everyone will will know about bullwhip effect, and I've experienced it if you work in supply chain. So you have less or less bullwhip, and it provides a very strong control on your inventory based on clear settings and paths, and that's what I really like. And finally, it's a methodology which is based on designing the supply chain according to few selected parameters. And it's all about parameters, and it removes the I'm not sure, or no, it's all fact-based. And that's what I really liked about the approach, because it's fact-based and it helps to manage definitely your supply chain better.
Now
And
we know what is DDMRP. Yeah, and you like it, I guess.
yes, definitely. Now I can speak about it a little bit longer, but you have to
Sure,
join DDP for that.
that's a good point. Let's come back to our pilot project. So you have launched the pilot project. So
Yeah.
I would like to know now what is the scope of this pilot?
So we selected 2 factories and 2 workshops inside those factories. The scope of the project was procurement and manufacturing. We left the distribution side of Legrand out, so we were really about procurement and manufacturing. We selected 2 workshops. You can see the products we used. So one workshop was about high-end plugs and interrupter, and the other was a very complex circuit breaker. The idea was to have various level of maturity in terms of supply chain and lean manufacturing, because the Antibes site was and workshop was very advanced in terms of lean manufacturing. So we were able to see the impact of DDMRP on both contexts. And so we had 270 SKUs in procurement and 280 SKUs in finished products, then delivered to our central warehouse and distributed all over the world. So it was a scope of almost 500 SKUs, so big enough to be significant for results and experience report.
So now we've got the frame, the scope of the project. This project had probably some objectives. How did you define this objective? Oops, sorry. How did you define these objectives, and what are there?
Well, I'm a supply chain manager. Many of you are probably, so it's all about what I call the holy grail of supply chain, right? You will talk, yeah, reduce inventory and improve service level. And this is the equation we have to solve every single day. So clear objectives, fact-based ones. We wanted to improve or maintain a satisfactory service level, but optimizing and reducing our stocks when needed. So that's common objectives for everyone. We had a third, I would say, more internal objective at Legrand, which was about standardization, because we have a very various background of practices in supply chain, in planning. We have different information systems depending on the sites. So the idea of everyone doing planning with the same approach, the same method, and the same software was very appealing for Legrand. So that was another push in order to convince our management to give us a green light for the pilot, because we were hoping to be able to standardize our practice of supply chain.
Okay, there is a comment. Can you hear us? I just have a comment that you cannot hear us. Can you write down that you can hear us? I can hear you, Eric, very clearly. Okay, so now it's okay. Good. Okay, so thank you for the feedback here. You can hear us. Very good. Now the objectives are clear, and yes, they are not magic objectives of the supply chain. I mean, all the supply chains have the same kind of objectives. Okay, now we've got the objectives, we've got the frame. What is the timeline of the project? What are the big milestones you were going through?
So we officially decided in May 2020, after the first lockdown, to launch the project, okay, and to launch the pilot. Despite all that was going on at the time, we felt it was important to continue innovating at supply chain, so we decided to go for it based on the DD breaks and everything we learned about demand driven. So we had the green light, funding, and a project to assemble. So the big kickoff for any project, in my opinion, is training. So we went through everyone involved in the project, planners, process engineers, information system specialists, project managers like me. We attended the demand-driven planner training that B2Wise is giving, that I can also now teach as of last week. And so that was a big bang. Right? It started, so we talked the same language and we all were on the same basis. And I would really encourage everyone running projects of deployment or even pilot to start with the training, because this is the basic and the foundation of the project, and it was very successful for that because everyone, it was around 15 people, were on the same ground. We spent 4 months after this big kickoff to do workshops to accompany change, to parameter the software, to test it, to make sure that it was giving us the right signal, to make changes when we wanted, to identify the processes we wanted to adapt, especially in a context of a very strong lean manufacturing operation. And in December 2020, we came back to our management and we said we have everything we need to go. So we recommend to have the kickoff, the go live in January 2021 on the scope of the project. And when I say go live, this is we start planning with B2Wise. All the recommendation of B2Wise, we follow them. And we use B2Wise to manage our flows of orders and everything. So that was a big go live in January 2021. So we had a very short time, 4 months to prepare everything, which was quite good, especially since we did it completely remote. We had to work with teams like everyone on the planet. Even if we adapt at the beginning, we realized that with all the shared knowledge about demand driven and all the energy we had, the distance really was not a barrier, and we were able to do everything we wanted across various cities and the 2 workshops, so it was quite good. And in January 2021, we started to plan according to demand driven for the pilot.
Wow, that's very short time, 4 months for set up everything, aggregating data, putting all the systems in place, training everybody, and all remotely. That's huge. That's huge.
We did work a little bit, not too much, but a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great performance. And then we are January 2021, and you started in training.
Yeah, we had 6 months of pilot time because we felt it was a time enough to give us meaningful feedback and experience to assess whether we wanted to go for demand driven or not. So we had a reference period of 4 months before to January, and after 6 months to see how demand driven was performing and how B2Wise was working for us.
Okay, so now we've got the preparation, the live sequence, and at the end of these 6 months of implementation, you know what, you've got a clear feedback. So let's go into the details, the results, and we will not spoil it, and we will not waiting too long. So let's go directly to the results. So, what were the results of this pilot?
I see you are indeed a result focused, Laurent.
Yeah.
So obviously we're here, so we had great results on the pilot, right? We either improved or maintained the level at the desired fill rate we wanted, which is 94% and even higher for some selected SKUs. What we did is that when we maintain service level, we were able to sustain it, but with 20% inventory less compared to the reference period. And when we improved service level because it was not where it needed to be first, we did it while controlling and maintaining what I say controlled stocks levels. So from fact point of view, for KPI point of view, we clearly delivered. I'm going to show details in a few slides. The great addition of the pilot is that in terms of standardizing and adoption of the method, everyone involved in the project team gave us the feedback that it was working better, it was improving our supply chain practice, and unanimously adopted demand-driven. So on top of facts, we also had some great feedback in terms of user experience and logic of the method.
Okay, it was working better, but we talk about Legrand. We don't talk about a small, medium-sized company that started their supply chain yesterday. Your supply chain was world class. You had a really great supply chain. So that's a great step to go ahead with great results, better than previously. Yes, but your results previously was great as well. So okay, I'm impressed. Yeah. So let's go down into details now. And let's go. I want to understand more how it worked. So let's zoom on Limoges. In this pilot, how did it work?
This is what you said. We already before delivered some quality results. So 94%. Some companies will say it's amazing. Some others will say, "Whoa, it's very low." We have also various, but still we were delivering some strong customer service. But we wanted to go further, deliver more, and with lower stock. And you can see the before and after in this slide, which shows service level and inventory. We can see a clear before and after. On the right, you've got the before, which is autumn and winter 2020. We had good service level, even maybe a little bit higher, but with significantly higher stocks to support this service level. In the time of the pilot, we had strong service level as well, with March and Feb at almost 97% service level. However, we delivered it with almost 20-25% less inventory and in a controlled way. And this is strong case. Before and after is very we can see it clearly on this slide and reports here.
And the size of the bubbles is
it's the volume.
What is it?
It's the activity.
It's the volume of the volume of activity.
The activity in April and March and even in Feb were a little bit higher than over the spring. No, the autumn of 2020.
Okay, got it. So in Limoges, it worked perfectly.
Yeah.
So
before after we could see.
Before after we see, yes. Now let's go in your playground, which is Antibes, in the sunny side of Côte d'Azur in France. So does it work as well with the sun?
Well, it does work, and you can see we don't have a lot of. It's a very quiet sea in the south of France, and despite this, you can see before we had waves in our inventory. Before, you can see here the before after. This is the evolution of our stock in the blue line, and you can see during the reference period, which was autumn 2020, we obviously did not use spring 2020 as a reference to compare before after. You can see the wave effect of our inventory and a significant one. We went from 2,000 units in stock to 5. One wave, second wave starting after December. So it's a sign of not fully controlled inventory. Okay, and you can see after the wave effect continued after the pilot started. But very soon, after 1 month, we entered a stabilization margin, right? You can see on the right, our stock evolved around 3,000 units. And it went much more stable, so we can see more control here. And during this period, you can see in red all the backlog, the red bars at the bottom. We had no backlog. So we did operate at a stable inventory with no backlog, which was already a strong point. What I like to say is that back in March 2021, when we reached the low end, I did announce. I called my planners and I said, look, we reached where DDMRP is telling us we should be. We are going to continue around this 3,000 corridor of inventory in the next few months, pending we don't have a major crisis or things like that. But we were able to predict and plan that we were going to evolve. And I'm very glad that we did, because this is what happened.
Nice.
So on top of being more stable, more control, we were able to predict it according to what Bitwise and demand driven was telling us in terms of parameters. So control, prediction, and stability, you can see on this chart. It was very obvious.
And on this chart, you don't have the bubbles of Limoges, so but you wanted to share some
I have
more.
waves.
Yeah. Oh, that's better. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, I had.
And
Now I don't have anymore.
yeah, the waves are more too steady.
Yeah.
So let's go into a more DDMRP kind of reporting, because on DDMRP we are using a lot of colors. And can you talk about this colorful graph that we can see here on the
Yeah. So
on the
demand
screen?
driven is all about buffers. Okay, and we have colors to express whether we are in a good shape or not in a good shape. When the flow or your stocks is in the red or the yellow buffer, it means you have some actions to do, some calls to actions. Whether you have to start launching production orders or you have to manage your pipe of orders better. If your flow or your stock is in the green level, then you have some people who say nothing to do. I will say you have other things to focus on. Okay, and when you are in the blue buffer, you are overstocked or overflowed, and it's also a call for action, because you have to check, like you will do in a normal classic MRP situation, whether there are some open orders you can maybe cancel, and you have to check them every single day. And understand why your flow is in the blue, because in theory, demand driven is only guiding you to the green buffer. And you can see the reduction. So this is number of references. Okay, we had 43 references on this chart. And you can see we started our pilot with almost 30 references in the blue according to demand driven. And week after week, we reduced the number of references in the blue. It means we avoided producing overstocked or overflowed, because the system is less nervous. And we looked at blue items also every day on top, because red and yellow, it's, you have to act. Obviously, it's your service level. But blue, we had to force ourselves to look at the blue and make sure we did not produce on this blue. And you can see the effect. And when you reduce your overstocked, your entire stock levels is also reducing. So we reduced our blues. However,
the blues of the businessman? No, this is the blues of the supply chain man. That's okay.
Well, the more yellow, the more green I see, the better I am. I'm often asked also, oh, is demand driven going to tell me when I'm in a crisis? And I want to say yes. If you have items in the red, it will mean you have some service crisis to face. And you can see here the direct relationship with references in the red in week 8 or even started week 22. And immediately you can see the impact on the service level. So demand driven is not magical. It will not make products available when you don't have supplier delivering, or if you have a major production stop. It's not miracle, but it will tell you about it as well as an MRP system, because when you have items in the red, it's clearly a call for action and a crisis to solve. So the alert system is working for the overstock and for the short stock. And it's graphical. It looks quite good, better than any KPI I've seen before.
Yeah, everybody can understand it clearly.
Yeah.
While you reduce the number of blue, it means that you will not produce this overflow. What's the impact on the capacity side?
Obviously, if you do not produce SKUs that you don't need anymore, it frees up capacity, especially on saturated production lines, in order to make sure you produce the right product. And it's a clear advantage of demand-driven.
Yeah,
The
and
fact
while
it's less
producing the
nervous
right
makes sure
products.
that you produce a better selection of SKUs.
Okay, that's clear. So it frees some capacity, and that is a great point. All right, let's go now into some more, I would say, because we've seen the numbers, we've seen the graphs, the KPIs. That's famous, that's great, but supply chains are driven by people. So what were the impact on people with this project?
So you can see, as I said, it was unanimously adopted. We have the feedback of one of our project team member, and in terms of using, so she's a planning specialist, and she used demand-driven as part of the pilot, and she was able to give us a little bit of background and feedback about it. It's better than any words from me or you, probably.
Okay, let's hear about the feedback. So video is coming.
Cet outil est très intuitif et bien adapté à l'opérationnel. Je m'appelle Sylvie, je travaille en tant que gestionnaire d'approvisionnement au sein de l'entreprise Legrand et j'utilise la nouvelle application DDMRP depuis quelques mois. La vie aujourd'hui avec Bitwise est simplifiée. Nous listons dans le temps nos stocks et nous évitons ainsi les ruptures au niveau production. C'est un outil qui permet de gérer nos approvisionnements de façon plus pointue au quotidien avec des analyses rapides, précises, que nous n'avions pas forcément dans l'ancien outil. Auparavant, le MRP déclenchait des demandes d'approvisionnement basées sur des prévisions avec des calculs de délai. Ça change complètement la donne et nous n'avons plus du tout la même façon de travailler. C'est un gain de temps puisque ça me libère de la disponibilité pour mes tâches quotidiennes. Personnellement, je trouve que cet outil est bien adapté à tout ce qui est opérationnel. C'est un outil intuitif, clairement très bénéfique.
Okay, so
Normalement, le son est de retour.
we are back. Yes, we are back. So wow, that's a great feedback from the qualitative point of view. So yeah, anything to add on that, Eric?
Ouais, users feedback is quite obvious, and it was a great and shared opinion amongst the project team.
Okay, but this point, most of the IT transformations are a bit hard. So what are the key success factors in this one to have this widely adoption of the users?
I think the tool was a strong point because we had a very old information system, and the fact that we came up with buffers, colored, very quick to use, the user experience was pretty a breakthrough, and it helps us to convince to, on top of changing method or to evolve in the method, because we still have MRP and DDMRP, we were able to say, and look, on top of that, we have a great improvement, because what you were spending 5 minutes to find before, now you can have it available in 2 seconds. So the power of the software was also a big help to convince users to switch.
Oh, okay, it's said. Perfect. Thank you, Eric. That's a great point. Now let's go into your processes, because Legrand is worldwide known for the maturity of the supply chain and the lean manufacturing side. So how did you combine both in this project?
So it's part of the workshops we had during the 4 months preparation period, where we had to identify the key processes that we were going to adapt or to modify a little bit. Most of them were linked with lean manufacturing, because Legrand has been very active on deploying lean manufacturing principles in all its factories for almost a decade now. So we identified those processes, and with the help of all the workshops we did, we were able to adapt and make sure we were able to have DDMRP while continuing all the benefits that lean manufacturing brought us over the years.
Let's go now in more details. Kanban. How did you manage Kanban with DDMRP?
So our production units, they are based on indeed a lot of Kanban and shop stocks as well, and milk train. I mean, a lot of lean manufacturing concepts and ideas. The question I receive a lot from day one on the project is, hold on, how am I going to make lean manufacturing work and leveling work with demand driven? And is my Kanban still going to be placed after demand driven? And indeed, demand driven is about reporting and counting stocks and movements, which in lean manufacturing with the Kanban or the shop stock you don't have. And I had a very practical response to this question. It was, if your Kanban works well and delivering satisfactory operational execution, there is no way and no reason to change. And the same applies for shop stocks. However, if your Kanban cycle is not fully delivering what you want it to be, maybe you want to explore demand-driven as an option to change how you manage this flow. So that's one thing we learned. We didn't go completely full scale. When it was working, we didn't change everything. However, we had a lot of references and flows managed with stock counts and reports, right? We implemented demand-driven MRP on all those flows and references that we were managing with MRP before. And when we had leveling, especially on A-class references, but even on B and C in some factories, we used demand-driven signal. So we modeled demand-driven on those class, and we used demand-driven as an entry point to feed the leveling tools we had. Okay, so demand-driven became the entry signal with the projected orders generated by demand-driven in order to feed our tools to level our A-class references. So even when we did not completely adopt demand-driven on A-class references, we used demand-driven to improve the signal we were sending. However, on B and C class references, we went all in with demand-driven to replace the existing MRP system before, and that's how we made the change acceptable and working.
Yes, to well understand it, what you told me is that before DDMRP, the signals that were feeding the Kanban were coming from the forecast in the regions, propagate it throughout the warehouses and distribution centers.
Yes.
Getting signal inside the plant and jumping the plant, because the plant is full pull system, jumping the plant to feed the replenishment of the raw materials. And now you change this signal to have a better signal, same signal all the supply chain around.
It's still a projection, but it's not based on forecast. It's really based on the buffers and based on the signals that Bitwise is generating. It's still leveling, but with different entry point. Yeah, and it's less. We reduce our forecast dependency.
That's a good point. And let's go now in leveling. So we've seen how you manage your Kanban with your class A, B, and C.
For shop stocks.
For shop stocks. How do you launch your orders, and what's these priority shared things?
So one of the big key discussion we had during the preparation was, how do I follow DDMRP when I have a production line, which is capacity constrained or saturated? I think it will talk to a lot of people on the call. The idea was to use a very powerful option in demand-driven, which is called priority share. And you can use it in Bitwise pretty easily. Look at this example. So this is a direct example of Bitwise. We have a selected number of references, and Bitwise in the actual quantity field is telling us that we should launch production orders for 3,600. But on this production line, we do not have this capacity, okay, to launch. Probably in a normal day-to-day situation that everyone will face. So you enter your capacity, which in this case, the example is 2,000, and Bitwise is going to calculate for you, according to DDMRP calculation method, where you need to produce in terms of quantity. So it's to better allocate the 2,000 you have available, and it's based on fact and calculations from that you can see in the demand planner training. And it's very powerful. So you can adapt your launch of orders according to your capacity available, and the system is calculating everything for you and is as close as possible to the demand-driven methodology. And I use that quite a lot. It's very, very powerful to use demand-driven on a constraint production line.
So you use this priority share for leveling and adapting your planning to your constraint. But the constraints are wide. I mean, when we're on production, we've got maintenance, we've got seasonality, we've got spikes that are coming. So how do you manage all these constraints?
It's all about sub events, right? We wanted to reflect in our parameters and in our buffers sub events like factory closure or supplier closure, maintenance, big topic, while we would like to do more inventory for a period of time. And we use another capability of demand-driven, which is called anticipation zone. And all you have to do to modify your buffer of stock is to enter your start date, your end date, and the quantity you want to produce on top of your normal day-to-day work. And Bitwise is generating an anticipation zone which is leveled week after week in order to increase your stock buffer and make sure that your recommendations are going to take into account the inventory you want to produce. So you reflect, thanks to these areas of anticipation, your sub decisions to close or to maintain a line. You enter even in your calendar when you are going to close, and when you close, your buffer is taking into account this sub decision. We still have some work to do to match our sub volumes into what demand-driven and the software is asking us to launch. It's a big topic for us and something which is still in progress. But in terms of reflecting the sub-decisions in terms of events, we feel this anticipation area is giving us everything we need to do that, and we are using it quite a lot.
And to summarize what you say is you take your constraints, production, supplier constraints, level, and
event,
all these constraints.
Just an event.
Events, and you put into the model easily into the system, so that the planning and the execution will be easily managed by the planners. So the key point is the model, the operating model, I guess.
Yeah, you can see your buffer increasing, and therefore your recommendations are going also to reflect whatever you want the system to do.
So we talked about the internal supply chain inside the plant, but what about the relation with the suppliers? How did DDMRP impacted this relationship?
So we had almost 270 SKUs in the pilot. So we launched a lot of orders for suppliers. Okay. Before, I will say we were managing those orders, not only, but part of it according to dates. And what demand-driven offered us to do was to manage those orders according to our stock alerts, what we call execution alerts. And therefore, we were able to tell our suppliers, look, we are late here, and also our stock is low. It looks easy to say, but with the execution alert and the management with alerts, we were able to focus on the orders we needed most, and not on the orders that were less old. Or you can see that, for example, on this bitwise extract, one order which is due by 68 days in the middle of the line, but the execution alert linked to this order is in the green. So we are not particularly desperate to get this order, even if it's an order which is 68 days late. And we switch it even more strongly, because this is what we were doing already in our procurement practices. We followed the execution alert more closely in order to really focus our requests to supplier according to this execution alert. And it was very powerful in changing and evolving how we were doing procurement. You can also do it on production, because you have production execution alerts as well, telling you where your inventory is, so you can also use it to launch.
So you will not ask to your supplier to expedite this late delivery and pay a taxi or extra express deliveries because you don't need it actually, and that's the lessons learned of this KPI. So on this raw material, this methodology changed deeply the way you manage your suppliers. Yeah.
The management with alerts is a very strong point, and it's one of the big innovations demand-driven is bringing. Of course, you can have other alerts in a classic MRP. What's your percentage of safety stocks or this kind of thing? But it's pretty visual and pretty easy to use, and it works really well.
Yeah, and do you send these alerts and share these alerts with your suppliers?
We did at some point, and we are planning in the big deployment to leverage it better. But did we do it enough? Not sure. Do we have plans to do it, and should we do it? Definitely, because the more the suppliers see about where we have alerts and execution shortages, the more help it can bring us to minimize those alerts.
We can talk about it hours, and I see you are passionate about that. So do I. So people ask us.
Me 1 hour. Yeah.
Yeah. People ask us, And the pilot, and what is the overall conclusion of the pilot? What's happening right now in Legrand? Because the pilot ended in June last year.
Yeah.
What's
So
next steps?
you know, it's not a big one, but we are doing a deployment today, a big deployment on our French factories, and this is very active, so it's taking a lot of my time, and I'm very happy with that. And
Nice.
we do it with B2Wise for the technology and training, so it's quite good.
Excellent. So now you are in this on this deployment phase. Yeah, we are at the conclusion, and I see a lot of questions that are coming. So keep going with the questions. But
Good.
before going on the questions, I've got one question for you, Eric. You went to you are an experienced supply chain manager. You've been working in Legrand in all other companies, and what is the key messages you want to give to other supply chain managers about your journey?
It's all about continuous improvement, I will say, and this is probably why I wish I had heard about demand-driven before. So when I faced bullwhip effect, I knew there was a way to a very good one to beat it. It's still a work in progress, but I'm convinced this is a way to reduce our forecast dependency and our bullwhip effect in our supply chain. So probably I wish I had met you a little bit earlier, Laurent.
You're on the way. That's the main purpose. Very good. Thank you a lot, Eric, for sharing your return of experience, your tips and tricks. That's really good. So I've got a lot of questions. Huh? You raised a lot of questions. So let's go step by step on the questions. Yeah, that's really good. I see that there is a lot of interest on your experience. So first, Margot is asking, what is your percentage between your class B and C and A? All items are on B2Wise, question mark. Only class A as a buffer, question mark. You answer partially to that, but
yeah, so all our items are in B2Wise, and we have around 10% of A-class references, so with big volumes, obviously, between 70 and 80. And we have everything. I mean, we plan entirely B and C in B2Wise, and we model in B2Wise the A-class references in order to generate projection of orders, and this is why what we feed in our tool to level productions, so to fit shop stock and everything.
Okay, good. Another question is, do you manage items that have no buffers inside B2Wise as well?
Yes, it's MTO, so make to order,
yeah.
And we have make to orders in B2Wise managed in B2Wise. So you have actually I have a lot of MTOs in B2Wise.
And you manage it through with the alerts.
Excuse me.
Not it's not yeah. It's not a buffer alert. Okay, that's the things that happening. We are in a real life. Yes, it is.
Sorry, joy of working from home.
Exactly, that's a real life. That's great. So yeah, you manage the buffers and the non-buffers inside B2Wise. That's the key point with time alerts, and that's another point that we didn't get into the details right now. So another question coming from Bugra. So MRP serves push system and DDMRP serves pull system, right?
Yes, pool is part of lean, and indeed pool is a good prerequisite to have implementation of DDMRP. At Legrand, we have been doing pool and leveling for a long time, so we didn't have to have this stage to switch from push to pull. So I don't know how big the step is to move from push mode to pull mode in order to get at the stage where we can implement demand driven. You have maybe other examples of companies that went through this. But you really have to have a pull flow thinking in order to implement demand driven. And this is why lean is not particularly completely it is possible to do lean manufacturing and demand driven, because at the end of the day you have to be pulled, definitely. That is a given.
Yeah, definitely. DDMRP is a pull system. It means you pull all your flow, material flow, from the demand, the real customer demand, and that's changed fully the mindset of your supply chain.
What I
Another
just cannot
question,
share back in experience is how difficult it is to go from push to pull. So probably you will have more examples than me on this.
Yes, that's a challenge, because we are mainly pull system with all the MRPs that are in place. We were all pull system. So I've got another question from Gerardo about why did you leave out distribution? Are you deploying DDMRP to this process in the near term? And he says thanks as well, and a lot of comments on that.
It's a good question. I have some examples from talking to you and to other clients of yours that you can deploy DDMRP on distribution. We have even companies that do not have manufacturing but only negos and distribution. So it is definitely possible. Why we didn't select to do, we wanted to focus on our key business, which in supply chain, where I work, is manufacturing and procurement. We exposed our distribution teams to demand driven. We share with them. The key barrier was that the information system was different from what we had on production and procurement, and that's where we were not able to extend to the pilot. We have plans to go for distribution. We just want to deploy properly, efficiently the production and the procurement before going after the distribution, because from information system point of view, it was a big step. So I talk about lean manufacturing and everything, but the information system to manage this change is also a big part of the project. So it's why.
And I would add as well, when you have these kind of decisions, where do I deploy my project, my pilot?
Can do everything.
You can do everything, but it depends on the sponsors. And you need to bring on board the sponsors, and on this field, the sponsors focused on production and procurement were more eager to go into this project than the other side they will go, but later on, not yet. Okay, that was a great question, Gerardo. Basil, hey Basil, nice to see you.
Hello.
So do you only have stock buffers on finished products, on components, on raw materials?
Yep, we buffered all three type of articles, and you have options to change them if you enter your bill of materials in the system, in order to make sure an impact on your finished goods also impact your components. So it's buffer chain is quite strong.
Yeah.
But we buffered everything. Yeah.
And the key point is that you propagate from the finished good to the raw material through all the processes of the production. And that's key
It's a key
to
part
have,
of demand-driven.
yeah, to well pilot your flows. That's key. So I see we are, yeah, I see we are 4 minutes ahead of the time. If you have to leave, just go. We are recording these sessions, and this recording will be available.
I can stay
But
a little bit, despite
yes,
what
yes, that's.
despite the army calling.
So let's go ahead with the other questions. And Omar has a great question. Project team involved. How was composed and selected? How did you select your team for this great project?
We enlisted all the planning specialists that were planning for the selected products and workshops, so that they were the first members of the team. We also hired information system specialists, very important, in order to compile and crunch all the data we needed to feed Bitwise every day, and make sure that we were sending the right data to Bitwise. So information systems was a big part of the project team. We also had process engineers, because process engineers, we were going to adapt and change the way we manage the orders at production. So managing with alerts, as I said earlier, and it gave us a great assembly of team and various background in order to make suggestions and to work together in order to run the innovation and manage it. So planning specialists, planning managers, obviously, project managers like me, IT, so information systems and process.
Good. On this pilot phase, the accounting wasn't included?
No,
Not yet. Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
good.
it's further in the demand-driven journey, but for our demand-driven, we impacted mainly production and operations. So we stayed with this type of profiles.
Yeah, and the key point here is the IT guys. You need to involve them as soon as possible, because they are key to extract the data and to make it great. So, and they can stop the project easily, actually. That's okay. Good, great team, great team.
Yeah.
Other question, so other questions. Are you doing DDSNOP as well? Can you elaborate? Yeah, where are you?
It's a good question. I see that some people attended the demand-driven planner for training. We are starting our journey in DDSNOP. We are focusing on demand-driven operating model today to generate the orders and manage them. But we also start to validate our models and validate our buffers. So that's where we start the demand-driven SOP process, because we are now looking at our profile levels. Bitwise is helping us with the capability to report and see the evolution of your buffers over time. So you can do experience sharing, you can see what happened on your buffers, and you can do a lot of analyzing to validate that your buffers are at the right level. So it's first step of DDSNOP that we are currently running at Legrand, because we are in the phase where we want to validate that Bitwise is giving us the right level of inventory and buffers that we expect. And it's the first step of DDSNOP. So big topic. We still run normal SNOP where we enter all the events and we enter production volumes and so on. But already we're in this step where we want to compare, for example, our average inventory in demand-driven and what is our sub-target, just to see that we are at the same level of inventory. And if not, is it that my buffers are not strong enough and we have to change the parameters? Is it that my sub-target is too high or too low or not the right one. So all those questions we start to engage as part of the deployment. All of it to confirm and validate our tactical side.
Yeah, and I will go further, is that in a pilot side, the DDSNOP is included into the pilot team, because all the team are the as the levers to adapt all the system, all the decisions. But then when you deploy wider, then you need to have a DDSNOP process, because then the decisions to take are much bigger, much stronger, and have a deeper impact. So yeah, you are in this journey with your deployment phase right now.
It's a long journey, I confirm, and that's why the question is so relevant.
It's critical.
I would say.
Yeah, relevant and critical. So we've got a question from Eric. What is the impact on the lead time and cycle times as well?
So ultimately, for example, on procurement, DDMRP is not going to give you a shorter lead time just without any intervention. Okay, and that's where I say it's not miracle. However, with positioning your buffers at the right place, you create small cycles and small chain of buffers, and that is what can reduce your lead time, because you break the dependency between some items in your bill of materials and in your production process. And by placing the inventory at the right place, this is where, especially in the manufacturing, you can contribute to reduce your lead times. It's like in normal MRP cycle. If you do not do any intervention, you do not reduce your lead time just because you say you're demand driven. You have to make an intervention, and in demand driven, this intervention is positioning a buffer at some point in your supply network, and this buffer is going to protect you and break the dependency on the level before, and that is where you can compress your lead times. But you have to work to compress lead times. It's no magic.
And I would add as well that people are nervous to compress their lead time or their minimum order quantities with implementing DDMRP. We always start the pilots, the projects, by copy-paste the real current situation. And then the start is exactly the same situation as previously. And then what's happening is very, very interesting, is that with this sizing of buffers, including all your parameters, when you've got too big minimum order quantities, or your lead time are so big, it will bump up your face. You will see clearly your issues, whereas all your parameters that are not updated into your EMRP system are hidden into SAP or behind Oracle or whatever in the setup of each one of the SKUs. Now with the buffers, you will see directly the impact of these parameters, and decisions are becoming obvious, and you will align everybody with these decisions.
And
all right,
it's not about reducing, but what I like about demand driven is that if a supplier tells you my lead time is going to increase by 10 days, before I will say you will not be able to estimate very precisely what the stock impact of this increase. With demand driven and with the modeling options that you have in B2Wise, you can immediately say, okay, my lead time is 10 more days. This is exactly the impact on my inventory it's going to have with the calculation of the method. And that's what I really like, because you are fact-based on changes. You can also say, okay, I reduced my lead time of 5 days because I made this intervention. What's my stock gain? It's very, very powerful.
Yeah. Another question, huh? We've got a lot of questions. Yeah. Thank you for your interest.
Happy to.
Yeah.
Very good.
Omar, so all is good, fine. Okay, perfect. what are any road blockers? Please mention just one main big problem encountered in your path to DDMRP. Good question.
It's a good question. The big one for a project for me is cultural change. When you've been using a system for 20 years and you are being shown, and this is what we are talking about, a new tool, even if it's shinier, it's based on a better methodology, you always have some convincing to do to make sure that it's adopted and that you demonstrate the added value of what you're trying to change. And cultural change is for me the biggest barrier, but it's also a very rewarding one to break. Because the methodology after the training is pretty obvious. You go out of the training to say, oh, this is an improvement. We have, it's an innovation and it's better. But it's about applying all those principles, and with a new tool, a new system, that you face a lot of cultural barriers, I would say. So
and how you overcome this?
I don't count the time to reply to every single objections I receive. And when you have a user of 10, it's okay, like a project. When we have today 30 or 50 people impacted by the change, well, you have to reply to everyone, and you have to be ready to do that, because it's how culturally you will convince of the added value, despite the fear of change. And we all want to change, but ultimately, change is frightening in most times. So I would say cultural change is a big, the big issue. Not issue, but barrier.
Okay, we've got a question from Carlos in Portugal. Did you measure the day of stock for raw materials, packing materials, and finished goods? What are the reduction?
Well, we do convert our stock levels from value to days. The percentage I announced in terms of reduction of stock was valid in value as well as in days. It was maybe a little bit less in days, from 20% to maybe 18, but we were in the same range of reduction, because you can see, for example, on the bubble chart, we had even more volumes during the pilot than we had during the reference period, and yet our inventory value was lower. So ultimately, on this very particular example of the chart bubble, it was even better in cover. But in terms of scale, we reduce cover, our days of covers, with the same scale of value as value.
Yeah, and I would add that having these colored buffers, KPIs, brings much more value than the number of days of cover, because I had this conversation yesterday with a big brand in luxury industry. Is that yes, I've got 8 days of coverage from this SKU and 8 days from this SKU, but on one it's good, on the other one it's not good, and then he didn't understand well. And while you will size your buffer, you will not only have your average daily usage, which is the number of days of cover that is included into the calculation of the buffer, but you will also add the variability that is included, the lead time, the frequency, the minimum order quantity. So you will understand how healthy is your buffer, your stock, not only in terms of stock coverage, but as well in the holistic view, so that your stock can answer your demand and answer properly with a good service level, with a number of inventory that is not too big. Okay. Any adding points, Eric, on this? Yeah.
No, I hope I answered the question as well as possible.
We've got
sure
a lot of
the feedback good.
We've got the thanks a lot. Thank you very much. Very good, very good. Ah, good. It's nice. Oh, another question. Hey, we will never stop. Huh?
Go for it.
DDMRP. Well, it's in French, so let me traduce live. Okay. DDMRP. Does DDMRP brings tools for a better capacity and resource management in one period?
I would say yes or no. We all depend on very advanced Excel files or ERP modules to plan and know our capacity. And the DDMRP tool is and software is doing differently. So you can enter all your time for all your references and manage capacity in bitwise. You have also capacity buffers that we see in the training to manage capacity buffer. But saying we already do a lot of work. I mean, sub preparation, you plan your capacity for months and week by week. So there are already a lot of existing tools to manage capacity. Demand driven, it will not make you manage your capacity better because ultimately this is already covered in our SOP or in our thing.
Yes, you already have the processes to manage
yes,
that in your company and inside this project. Yeah,
what Bitwise offers is a strong capacity management when you know the time it takes to make a product and when you can enter it in the system. And it does tell you what is your load, and it's up to you to know your capacity and to compare it with this load, and this is quite powerful in the B2R software. Yes.
Okay, good. That's great. I think that we covered all the points. Thank you so much, everybody coming from all around the world for all your questions, all your involvement. Thank you, Eric. Thank you so much for sharing all your tips and tricks and all your knowledge on DDMRP. It was a great webinar. Thank you so much, and we are expecting in 1 year to see you back and talk about your deployment phase, because we only covered the pilot. Now we want to know more.
We've got a deal. Yes.
Okay, let's do that, and good luck for all your trainings, because you will train a lot of people in Legrand to DDMRP.
Yeah, starting next week.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. Okay, all right. Thank you very much, everybody, and see you then. Okay, bye-bye.